Welcome back. Just a quick VR response for Clemente Collector. Theo, I hope you're doing well. Wanted to respond to your request to the community to be able to kind of show a card or a picture that best represents Roberto Clemente to me. And for me, I actually pulled out a card from one of my complete sets. It's not the one pictured behind you there, but I wanted to pick out a card that probably not everybody was picking. And this, for me, it's the Manager's Dream card from the 1968 top set. It also features Chico Cardenas and also Tony Oliva. For me, I selected this card, and actually I'll tilt the camera forward a little bit and kind of zoom in just a little more so you can see it pretty well. For me, this card kind of represented what Roberto Clemente meant to a lot of the players that are coming from Latin America during this period of time. He was a little bit older than these ball players and had been in the league a little longer, but they so looked up to him. They weren't Puerto Rican themselves, they were from Cuba, both of them. He was like a legend for them by this point. And I know that the path began a bit more before then when you kind of look at some of the players who came from Latin America before then. But Clemente really kind of stood out as someone that was pretty vocal about their treatment and the way they were kind of dealt with throughout America, but especially during his time in the minor leagues. And I think a lot of players that were kind of making that trek into the United States who maybe didn't speak any English really kind of looked up to Clemente in many ways, the way he kind of held himself, kept the culture first and foremost as part of his identity, and that he identified clearly as Puerto Rican playing in America as opposed to anything else first and foremost that was seemed to be very apparent and important to him. So you can see this one, they're both kind of like looking over at Roberto Clemente in this picture. They're not really looking at the camera, whereas Roberto Clemente is. Clearly it was taken in an all-star game because you have American League players and National League players represented here, probably during the 1967 all-star game. But for me, this is like one of the series of cards in this set where they have multiple players on here, but here's one I think for me best exemplifies what Roberto Clemente meant to the game during his era. As you can kind of see, both these players are kind of looking at him in awe. And Tony Oliva was, no slouch himself. Kind of starting with Tony Oliva, he's now obviously in the Hall of Fame as of 2022, but he finished with a 304 average, had just under 2,000 hits for his career, won 3 batting titles, was Rookie of the Year, was runner-up to the MVP twice, a Gold Glove, and an 8-time All-Star. And Leo Chico Cardenas played for 15 seasons across several different teams, but most notably with the Cincinnati Reds and is in their Hall of Fame. But he was a 5-time All-Star himself, also a Gold Glove winner in 1965, and had just over 1,700 hits and just over 100, had 118 home runs. So these guys were not like insignificant players, obviously, in baseball history. And you can see that they're still kind of like looking up to someone they clearly idolized and looked up to in this picture. And for me, this is what kind of represents what Roberto Clemente has meant to the game of baseball, and probably still does to this day for a lot of players that are honoring his legacy by continuing to play on or from Latin America themselves in the major leagues. So I hope that's good enough for you, Theo. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll be back soon.